Welcome on board, Chosen One. You finally stepped in. Good. Because someone out there has been acting a little too bold with your name in their mouth, and it's time you hear why. Here's the unpleasant truth your enemies pray you never figure out. The moment you stopped apologizing for existing, they started watching you like a crime scene. No metaphor, no exaggeration, just the raw fact that unsettles them to their core. You walk into a room and every insecure soul suddenly forgets how to breathe because you don't play by their rules, you don't fear their approval, and you don't bend for their comfort. They can't predict you, they can't control you. And what people can't control, they try to investigate. Before we go deeper into this, tap that like button and subscribe, not as a favor, as payback for the truth you're about to receive. Now let's keep going, because this story only gets darker for your enemies. You know that strange silence around you lately, that shift in the air? It's not your imagination. That's the world recalibrating itself around someone who refuses to be small. Think about it. The people who once dismissed you suddenly walk lighter when you're near. The ones who tried to manipulate you now study your face like they're decoding a hidden message. They used to underestimate you. Now they're scared of misreading you. And the funniest part, they don't even understand why they're intimidated, they just feel it. Your presence used to be background noise, but the moment you embraced your truth, you became the loudest frequency in the room. The kind they can't mute, even if they try. This is the aftermath of a battle they thought they won. They expected you to break, not to rise. They expected you to crawl, not to stride. Their failure clings to them like smoke, while your silence hits harder than a war cry. Let's be honest, they never prepared for this version of you. They trained for the old you, the quiet one, the agreeable one, the one who felt guilty for having potential. But then something shifted. You stopped just surviving and started observing them too. You saw who lied, who used you, who envied you, who pretended to be neutral while secretly throwing shade in rooms you weren't in. You saw everything, and instead of reacting, you evolved. That's what's haunting them now. People start investigating when they feel their power slipping, and yours slipped out of their hands the moment you realized you weren't the problem. You were the entire plot twist. You became the one thing they never expected. Someone who could walk away without looking back. Someone who doesn't need permission. Someone with enough self-respect to leave the table even if it means eating alone. That's when their obsession began. This investigation they've launched. It's not flattering, it's desperate. They dig through your history, hoping to find flaws they can weaponize. They analyze your social media like detectives searching for a confession. They stalk your silence like it's a crime. They ask mutual friends tiny, pathetic questions disguised as concern. And late at night, when they pretend they're over you or unbothered by you, they replay conversations like old voicemails just to understand how you slipped out of their grasp so easily. But here's the twist they never saw coming. Your mystery isn't an act. It's the natural result of surviving everything that should have destroyed you. You didn't become unreadable by choice. Life carved you into that. Every time someone tried to break you, you learned something new about human nature. Every betrayal sharpened your intuition. Every disappointment built another layer of self-control. And every time someone underestimated you, the universe added another lock to your soul that no one can pick. This is why they're studying you now. They're trying to catch up to the version of you they created by hurting you. Let's rewind for a second. Remember the moments they thought you were weak, when you were quiet because you were processing, when you were alone because you were healing, when you stopped arguing because you were already planning your exit. They mistook all of that for defeat. They bragged, they mocked, they felt victorious until you stood back up. That was the moment everything snapped. The same people who once dismissed you now whisper about you like you're a forbidden secret. They sense you've changed. They don't know what you know now, and that uncertainty eats them alive. You didn't just glow up. You leveled up in a way that forced them to face their own mediocrity. And that's why they're watching you so closely. They're terrified you might expose them just by existing. Their worst fear is simple, that you finally understand your worth, that you finally move in silence without apologizing, that you finally choose yourself, because if you do, every false narrative they built about you collapses. You are the mystery they can't solve, the story they can't rewrite, the truth they can't bury. And the funny thing is, you didn't even try to be any of this. You just lived. You just survived. You just kept going. Welcome on board, Chosen One. You're not being investigated because you're suspicious. You're being investigated because you're unforgettable. And hey, listen, Chosen One, before we keep going, lock in with me for a second. If you've made it this far, that already tells me everything. You're not here by accident. You felt the tension in the air, the eyes on you, the quiet investigation happening behind your back, and something in you said, I want the full truth. Good. That alone proves you're built different. So do me one favor. Drop the number 777 in the comments to let the watchers know you see them right back. Hit like and subscribe as a way of strengthening this mission, because the more you grow, the harder it gets for anyone to hide from your truth. Now that the signal is sent, let's move forward. What comes next is not soft, not filtered, and definitely not meant for anyone who's afraid of their own power. If you really are the mysterious force they're studying, you're going to feel the pull to stay until the very last word. No rushing, no skipping. This is where we break down the investigation step by step, and trust me, once you hear the next part, everything around you will start making sense. Let's begin. Number 1. The human lie detector effect. Funny how the same people who swore they didn't care about you suddenly turn into detectives the moment your silence gets louder than their gossip. When you walk into a room, the atmosphere doesn't just shift, it tightens, like everyone's instincts just got slapped awake. And trust me, that pisses off the ones who built their whole identity on pretending they're superior. They can sense it before they even look up. Something in the energy tilts. Conversations glitch, eyes flick over without meaning to. Hearts beat a little faster. You don't steal attention, it trips over itself and lands at your feet. That's why they're investigating you, because nothing about you behaves the way their brains expect. You're the glitch in their simulation, the error message they can't clear. You don't follow the social script they memorized. You don't need to perform to be noticed. You don't need to speak to be understood. That terrifies them more than you think. And here's the part that really burns them. You're not trying. You're not posturing, not begging, not competing, not chasing. You're just existing, and somehow your existence outshines their entire performance. They spent years building a personality, while yours just shows up. This is where the investigation begins. How does someone do nothing and still become everything we can't ignore? They don't get it. They can't. Because they've lived their whole lives manipulating attention while you've spent yours mastering presence. That's a different league entirely. And Chosen One, you've felt it, haven't you? That vibe you carry that you didn't ask for, that strange awareness when you walk somewhere and you can literally feel the shift in the room, like the oxygen rearranges itself. People pretend it's in your head, until you start noticing the patterns that prove it isn't. The way someone fumbles their words, the way someone watches you from the corner of their eye, the way a group goes quiet just long enough to let you know you interrupted something without even speaking. This is the investigation phase, and it always starts the same way. People scan you like they're reading a classified file. They replay your tone, your movements, your reactions. They try to categorize you, label you, predict you. But the labels don't stick. The categories don't fit. You defy every box they try to shove you into. That's when curiosity turns into obsession. You've probably wondered, why do they stare? Why do they copy me? Why do they act different when I enter? Because you're not a person to them. You're an anomaly, a living contradiction. Someone calm but dangerous, kind but untouchable, quiet but unforgettable, and the human mind is built to explain what it fears. You give them nothing to work with, so they fill the blanks with paranoia. Your energy is too clean for their mess, too steady for their chaos, too sharp for their illusions, and being around you forces them to face truths they avoid. That's why they investigate you like you're carrying secrets. You remind them of everything they're not. Some people walk into a room and try to be seen. You walk in and the room tries to see you. They don't know whether you're a threat, a blessing, or a walking mirror reflecting their insecurities back at them. So they pick the safest strategy they know, studying you from a distance, hoping to decode the formula behind your presence. But here's where it gets hilarious. The more they investigate, the more confused they get. You don't fit their assumptions. You don't react the way they predicted. You don't shrink when they expect weakness. You don't boast when they expect arrogance. You move like someone who knows things they don't. That alone drives them insane. You show them that power doesn't have to shout. Real power sits in the corner, observes, and lets everyone else expose themselves. The stories they create about you say more about their fears than your truth. They'll claim you're hiding something. They'll say you're hard to read. They'll whisper that you're different, but they'll never admit the real reason. You make them feel transparent. They're scared that one of your glances might see right through their lies. And chosen one, you do. Think back. How many times did you know someone's intentions before they spoke? How often have you felt the shift in someone's energy without seeing their face? People forget that survival builds intuition. Your past didn't just toughen you, it trained you. You became the kind of person who can sense things others overlook. The kind who can walk into a room and instantly know who's fake, who's threatened, who's jealous, who's curious. You are the walking version of, I know what you did, and I don't even need to say it. Of course they're investigating you. They're trying to understand why they can't understand you. They've never met someone who doesn't crumble under pressure, doesn't beg for approval, doesn't fall for manipulation. You're immune to tactics that work on everyone else. In their world, that's impossible, so they assume you're hiding something. And here's the truth they won't admit. You do have something they don't: self-control. You don't overshare. You don't brag. You don't chase validation. Your silence is a weapon. Your boundaries are armor. Your energy is encrypted. And when someone like you walks in, people who rely on being loud suddenly feel weak. You walk like you've survived storms they'd never last 10 seconds in. You carry a calmness that looks suspicious to people who aren't used to real strength. They don't understand that you're quiet because you don't need a crowd. You're observant because you learned the cost of trusting the wrong people. You're mysterious because peace turned you into someone they can't measure. They investigate because they need answers. You don't give them any because you are the answer. And chosen one, Don't underestimate how much that threatens them. You're not the mystery they're trying to solve. You're the lesson they're trying to avoid. Every time you rise without explanation, someone out there panics. Every time you glow without permission, someone out there spirals. Every time you speak the truth without fear, someone out there flinches. You're not just shifting energy, you're exposing their weakness, and they feel it in their bones. That's why they investigate you. Not because you're confusing, but because you're unforgettable. Number 2, the fear of being wrong about you is their worst nightmare. Nothing scares a fragile ego more than realizing the person they judged from afar is 10 times deeper, sharper, and stronger than they ever imagined. People have a strange addiction, chosen one. They desperately want to be right about who you are. It comforts them, it soothes them, it gives them this cheap little illusion that they see the world clearly, so they try to label you. They try to classify you. They try to squeeze you into some predictable identity. Hero, villain, genius, fraud, lucky, blessed, cursed, lost, found. Whatever helps them feel like they've got you figured out. But you ruin that for them. You slip right out of every box they try to shove you into. You crack their assumptions with ease. You shatter their theories without opening your mouth. And that's where their panic begins. Imagine this. Someone thinks they've finally decoded your personality, and then you do something that makes their entire conclusion collapse like a house of cards. It's humiliating for them, even if they pretend it's not. Because the truth is, your very existence challenges their sense of control. They want to believe people are simple, predictable, easy to map. But you show them the world isn't that neat. You show them how messy, layered, and unpredictable humans can actually be, and nothing bruises a confident ego like realizing they were wrong about someone who wasn't even trying. Your unpredictability isn't chaos, it's precision that they can't comprehend. People want to categorize you because it helps them feel smart. It helps them feel above you. They want to be the ones who can read people, the ones who understand human nature, the ones who say, yeah, I know exactly what type they are. But with you, their system breaks, their pattern fails, their predictions crumble. Because you're not a type, you're not a category, you're not an easy data point. You're the exception that exposes how flawed their judgment really is. And that's where the obsession forms. If they're wrong about you, what else have they been wrong about? If they misread you, who else have they misjudged? If you turned out to be nothing like their assumptions, then how many other lies have they told themselves just to feel secure? Your existence becomes a mirror, showing them how unreliable their instincts truly are. Imagine this. They thought they had you pegged as quiet, harmless, simple, and then you leveled up in silence, healed in private, rose in ways they never saw coming. Imagine how that shakes someone who believed they understood everything about you. You're living proof that their judgment is not the reliable compass they pretend it is. Their entire identity is built on being the person who knows, and you expose them as the one who doesn't. You're not confusing. They're just not used to someone who can't be reduced, controlled, or predicted. People need to feel like they can read you because not understanding you feels dangerous. It threatens the little world they built in their head. You're too calm for them to categorize, too aware for them to manipulate, too mysterious for them to decode, too self-contained for them to judge. You break their pattern. You ruin their logic. You disturb their comfort. They want to be right about you because it validates them. They get to feel superior. They get to feel safe. But you keep proving them wrong. You don't act the way they expect. You don't react the way they predict. You don't fall for the traps they set. You don't match the assumptions they make. Every time they think they've pinned you down, you reveal another layer they never imagined existed. You don't do it intentionally. It's just who you are. You're multidimensional in a world full of cardboard cutouts. You're complicated in a world that loves simplicity. You're a plot twist in human form, and that threatens them more than you realize. Imagine this. They judge you from afar, assuming you're fragile, and then they see how you bounce back from things that would break them instantly. They assume you're naive, and then your silence exposes all their lies. They assume you're average, and then your resilience reminds them you've survived storms they couldn't even stand in. They assume you're easy to read, and then your eyes tell them you've seen everything and you're still unbothered. People hate being wrong about you because it forces them to confront something they desperately avoid. They don't know as much as they think they do. Their ego cannot handle that. The human mind would rather invent stories than accept uncertainty. It's easier for them to twist the narrative about you than to admit they misjudged someone powerful. That's why they investigate, not out of curiosity, out of fear, out of insecurity, out of desperation to regain control over the story. Your existence exposes their blind spots, and nothing bruises an ego faster than having its limitations revealed. And chosen one, you've probably questioned it, haven't you? Why do they care so much? Why do they watch me? Why do they react so strangely around me? Because you trigger their fear of being wrong. You shake their fake confidence. You force them to confront the cracks in their understanding. Every time they see you act in a way that contradicts their assumptions, they panic. Every time you grow past their expectations, they break inside. Every time you move differently from what they predicted, they question themselves. You make them uncomfortable, not because you're dangerous, but because you remind them of their own misjudgments. You remind them that the world is bigger than their limited thinking. You remind them that people like you exist, people they can't control, can't define, can't decode. You become a threat to their mental framework. And once someone feels mentally threatened, they start obsessing, they start watching, they start analyzing, they start digging, they start investigating. Because if they can finally be right about you, it repairs their pride, it restores their worldview, it puts them back in control. But since they can't figure you out, since you constantly break their expectations, they fall into a loop. Curiosity, confusion, frustration, denial, repeat. Imagine this. They think they've finally nailed who you are, and then you grow again. You evolve again. You outsmart their assumptions again. You move with a different rhythm they didn't account for. You level up in ways they didn't predict. Suddenly, everything they thought they knew about you becomes outdated. You don't just break their theories. You make their entire judgment system look foolish. And the funniest part? You're not even doing any of this on purpose. You're just being you. You're just existing. You're just living your truth. While they're out here rewriting case files on you like overworked investigators trying to solve a mystery that refuses to stay still. This fear of being wrong about you will always keep them circling you. They'll keep watching. They'll keep guessing. They'll keep trying to decode you, because to admit they don't understand you means admitting they don't understand themselves. You are the walking reminder that their worldview is incomplete. You are the glitch that exposes the flaws in their system. You are the contradiction that proves how little they truly know. And their ego cannot handle that. That's why they investigate you relentlessly, not because you're strange, but because you're too real for their illusions. too complex for their assumptions, too powerful for their categories, and the more they try to define you, the more you prove one truth. You were never meant to fit their understanding. You were meant to break it. Number 3. The origin they can't track, trace, or tame. Nothing terrifies a control freak more than a chosen one who rose from places that don't even show up on their maps. People want your story to make sense because their tiny worldview depends on it. They want your past to follow a neat little sequence, like a checklist: good family, good school, good opportunities, good outcome. That's the script they worship. But you didn't follow their script. You weren't shaped by the usual ingredients, and that alone makes them itch with confusion. They dig, they pry, they stalk your history like nosy archaeologists, hoping to find the reason you turned out this powerful. But everything they uncover only confuses them more. Imagine them trying to connect your childhood to your confidence, and nothing matches. Imagine them analyzing your failures and realizing those failures should have broken you, but somehow they didn't. Imagine them dissecting your relationships, expecting to find the moment you became weak, only to find the moment you became unstoppable. Every pattern they expect to see ends in a dead end. You don't line up with the path they think creates strength. You're not the product of privilege, yet you carry yourself like you were raised in a palace. You didn't go through their polished systems, yet you speak with a calm authority that rattles people who studied their whole lives. You had odds that should have crushed you, yet here you are, steady, collected, and impossible to diminish. And that's where the panic kicks in. Because if your rise wasn't logical, then what does that say about their excuses? If you came from nothing and still became something, then what does that say about their comfort? If you lived through storms they never could, then what does that say about their strength? You become the question they don't want to ask. What if the rules we live by aren't real? That's why they keep investigating your origins. It's not admiration, it's desperation. They need to believe your success has a hidden formula, because if it doesn't, then their entire worldview shatters. They need a reason, a cause, a source, anything that explains why you move like someone carved from fire instead of following their predictable path. But the deeper they dig, the more unsettling the truth becomes. There is no clean map behind you, no blueprint, no system. You weren't assembled, you were forged. Imagine this: they flip through your history like it's a file, expecting neat chapters, but all they find is chaos that somehow turned into brilliance. They look for mentors who molded you and find empty rooms you filled yourself. They search for validation you should have needed and find only self-grit. They look for the one lucky break that made you, and realize you made yourself without one. Their fear isn't that you come from nowhere. Their fear is that you prove nowhere is enough to start from. And that's why your origins feel untraceable to them, because they expect growth to follow their timeline, their rules, their stages. You didn't. You grew in silence. You evolved in dark corners. You rose in moments no one witnessed. You learned from experiences that aren't written in books. You built strength in ways they don't teach. You found wisdom in places they never look. You sharpened instincts through pain they'll never endure. You're not a product, you're a phenomenon. So when they ask themselves, how did this person end up like this? They can't find an answer that makes sense in their world, and that's when the investigation becomes obsession. Because if they can't predict where you came from, they definitely can't predict where you're going. If they can't explain your past, they can't control your future. and that terrifies anyone who needs to feel superior just to feel stable. Here's a truth they choke on. You didn't rise because of where you came from. You rose in spite of it. You're not an outlier. You're evidence. Evidence that strength doesn't come from comfort. Evidence that intelligence doesn't come from institutions. Evidence that confidence doesn't come from validation. Evidence that greatness doesn't need a clean origin story. You are the living reminder that fire can create what privilege never could. They keep digging for the missing link, but there isn't one. They want the moment that made you, but you were made through 1,000 invisible battles. They want the story that explains your power. But your story wasn't written for them to understand. You're not a product of logic. You're a result of resilience, and people like you don't come from formulas. You come from fire. Number 4. Their obsession is just envy dressed up in praise. People don't stalk what they don't value. They only study what scares them or fascinates them, and you happen to be both. Let's make this painfully clear. Their obsession with you stopped being about control a long time ago. It morphed into something else, something they'd never admit, even under pressure. They watch you like a threat, but deep down, it feels like reverence. They pick apart your every move, not because they hate you, but because they want whatever you have pulsing through your veins. Imagine this. Someone claims you intimidate them, yet they can't look away. Someone swears you're not that special, yet they watch how you walk, talk, react, breathe. Someone insists you're overrated, yet they mirror your phrases and copy your decisions. If that's not a twisted form of admiration, what is it? They don't want to expose you. They want to absorb you. Because let's be real, there's something about you they can't imitate, no matter how hard they try. Maybe it's your ability to keep your composure while the world around you caves in. Maybe it's the way you move, with a confidence that isn't loud, but definitely unshakable. Maybe it's that strange, calm energy that follows you into every room, the kind that whispers, "I know who I am, and nothing you do can change that." That drives people insane, because most of them crumble under pressure while you turn pressure into strategy. Their investigation becomes a ritual. They watch your reactions like a lesson. They study your silence like scripture. They track your evolution like a prophecy unfolding. They don't want to defeat you. They want to unlock the blueprint of your resilience. They want to understand how someone who went through storms still stands, like the storm made you stronger instead of weaker. They'll call it judgment. They'll call it criticism. They'll frame it like you're the one under examination. But the truth is much simpler, much more embarrassing for them. You're the mirror that exposes their potential and their failures. Your strength highlights their weakness. Your mystery highlights their predictability. Your growth highlights their stagnation. And that's why they can't let go. You represent the version of themselves they wish they had the guts to become. Imagine this. They deny looking up to you, but your name stays stuck in their mind like a song they can't shut off. They deny copying you, but their behavior shifts every time yours evolves. They deny admiring you, but they watch you like you're the missing piece of a puzzle they've never been able to solve. Your existence is a reminder of unrealized greatness. Your resilience is a reminder of wasted potential. Your presence is a reminder that they could have been more, but weren't. And that is why the obsession never stops. They need you, not literally, but symbolically. You are the spark they can't create, the composure they can't fake, the mystery they can't decode. You are the proof that extraordinary doesn't need permission, validation, or explanation. So yes, chosen one, their obsession is a form of worship. A distorted, silent, ego-bruising worship. They won't bow, they won't confess, they won't speak it, but their actions scream it. That's why they watch. That's why they analyze. That's why they keep returning. Because in you, they see the greatness they were too afraid to chase. Number 5. The one who breaks their script and their nerves. Predictable people hate you because you remind them they're living life on rails while you roam like you own the map. People cling to predictability like it's their lifeline. They want everything and everyone to follow a pattern so they can feel in control. But then you show up, the anomaly, the glitch, the curveball, and their whole illusion of order cracks right down the middle. You don't obey their expectations. You don't react on cue. You don't fit the emotional template they rely on. And nothing rattles someone more than realizing you can't be controlled with assumptions. They push you, expecting you to explode, but you stay calm with that unsettling little smile that says, "I see through you." They expect guilt, but you give indifference. They throw shade, and you walk past it like it never existed. They think you'll argue, but you go quiet and start observing. And in that silence, they panic because they know something about you is operating on a depth they can't reach. Imagine someone trying to trigger you, and instead of fighting, you laugh. Not because it's funny, but because their attempt is embarrassingly weak. Imagine someone thinking they can manipulate your emotions, and you just tilt your head like, "You really thought that would work?" Imagine someone expecting you to beg for clarity, and you choose distance instead, leaving them clueless and furious. People who rely on predictable behavior crumble when they meet someone who refuses to play the part. Your unpredictability isn't chaos, it's power. You move with intuition, sharp enough to slice through their illusions. You navigate situations with an instinct that can't be taught, predicted, or explained. That terrifies people who only understand life through cause and effect. They want simple input-output relationships. Hurt them, get a reaction, lie to them, get confusion, challenge them, get resistance. But you break every formula they've ever trusted. You think in spirals. They think in straight lines. And straight-line thinkers are terrified of people who can turn corners they don't see coming. Your unpredictability exposes their lack of creativity, their lack of depth, their lack of inner strength. Because while they cling to routines for safety, you operate from self-trust. You don't wait for proof. You don't wait for permission. You don't follow their logic. You follow your intuition, and your intuition has never lost. That's why they investigate you. They desperately try to decode your patterns, unaware that you don't run on patterns at all. You run on awareness, instinct, and experience they've never lived through. And here's the truth that haunts them. You're free in ways they've never even imagined. Freedom scares people tied to predictability. Your refusal to behave like a puppet threatens the whole structure of how they understand relationships, power, and control. You don't break rules. You move in ways that make rules irrelevant. And they hate that because it makes them question everything they were taught about how people should act. You're living proof that power isn't loud or predictable. Power is calm. Power is unreadable. Power is the ability to respond, not react. And that's why you feel dangerous to them. Because no matter how hard they study you, you stay 3 steps ahead. Unpredictable, unshakable, and absolutely unforgettable. Number 6. The mirror that makes their demons scream. People don't fear you, they fear the parts of themselves that wake up when you walk in. Chosen one, you don't just enter a room, You activate things inside people they've spent their whole lives trying to bury. You're not triggering them because you're intimidating. You're triggering them because you're honest. You're raw. You're aligned with yourself in ways they've never dared to be. And when someone like you stands in front of someone who's been lying to themselves for years, it hits them like a punch straight through their identity. Imagine someone who's spent their life pretending to be confident, and then you show up with the kind of confidence that's built from pain, truth, and survival. It cracks their mask. Imagine someone who's lived on autopilot, waking up every day to a routine that kills their spirit, and then they see you chasing purpose like it's oxygen. It exposes their stagnation. Imagine someone who has faked their personality for so long, they don't even know who they are anymore. And then your authenticity walks in like a spotlight aimed directly at their facade. You don't trigger people. You remind them of who they could have been. They see themselves in you, not the version they show the world, but the version they abandoned, the confident version, the brave version, the creative version, the free version. And instead of facing that truth, they project their discomfort onto you. They make you the problem because it's easier than confronting their own regrets. Your presence wakes their shadows, their jealousy, their insecurity, their guilt, their fear, and rather than deal with that mess, they turn you into the battleground. They investigate you, not because you're mysterious, but because they're hoping they'll find something wrong with you that'll make them feel better about everything wrong with themselves. If they can spot a flaw in you, they don't have to face the flaw in them. So they dig, they search, they stalk your social media like archaeologists hoping to find a crack in your foundation. They analyze your past, your mistakes, your silence. They want proof that you're not as strong, not as grounded, not as real as you seem. But every time they dig, they expose themselves instead. Their bitterness shows. Their envy slips out. Their insecurity spills. They end up revealing every shadow they tried to hide. And that's the part they'll never admit. You didn't hurt them. You awakened them. You shook the parts of them that were asleep. You triggered the dreams they abandoned. You reminded them how small they've been living. You stirred emotions they never processed. And that internal earthquake. They feel it every time they're around you. Remember this. People don't obsess over people who mean nothing. People don't investigate people who don't affect them. People don't analyze people who don't hold power over their inner world. Your existence disrupts the illusions they built. You force them to see their shadows in 4K clarity. Even when they try to hate you, they can't stop watching you because you represent the truth they've been avoiding. Imagine this. Someone tries to belittle you, but afterward they can't stop thinking about why it bothered them so much. Someone tries to act superior, but later they replay the interaction and realize you didn't buy their act. Someone tries to dismiss you, but deep down they know you struck a nerve they didn't know they had. You didn't just enter their life, you entered their subconscious. And that's why they stay hooked, not because you asked for attention, not because you tried to impress them, but because you forced their inner world to wake up, and now they can't unsee what you showed them. Some will hate you for it, some will admire you for it, some will fear you for it, some will try to become you because of it, but all of them will be changed by you. That's the real reason they keep coming back. You aren't just a person to them. You're a catalyst, a trigger, a mirror that reveals everything they've been running from. And once someone experiences that, they're never the same again. You activate their shadows. And their shadows never let go. Number 7. The quiet that exposes everything they hide. Nothing haunts a guilty conscience more than a chosen one who refuses to explain a damn thing. Silence isn't just your habit, it's your weapon, and the moment you go quiet, people lose their minds. They're used to manipulating reactions, pulling strings, getting answers, stirring drama. But you give them nothing. No explanations, no clarifications, no emotional breadcrumbs. Just quiet. And that quiet hits them harder than any argument ever could. Your silence becomes an empty space they can't stand, so they start filling it with their own insecurities. Did I say something wrong? Why didn't they answer? Are they mad at me? Did I lose access to them? Imagine this. You send no reply, and suddenly a whole psychological thriller starts playing inside their head, not because of what you did, but because of what they fear. Your silence isn't passive. It's reflective. It shows them the truth of who they are without you lifting a finger. You're not ignoring them. You're allowing them to hear the volume of their own insecurity. People who crave control get the most rattled by your quiet. They can't predict you. They can't pull reactions out of you. They can't read you like they read everyone else. They're used to people explaining, apologizing, defending, oversharing, and you do none of that. Your silence is the first time they realize they don't own the narrative. You do. And that's when the investigation begins. They replay your last interaction like detectives staring at blurry footage, zooming in on moments, overthinking pauses, analyzing facial expressions, dissecting tone. They stalk your silence like it's a crime scene. Because your lack of response forces them to face feelings they've been hiding from themselves. Imagine someone calling you quiet, but secretly staying up at night, trying to interpret every moment you didn't speak. Imagine someone claiming they're unbothered, yet checking your profile, rereading messages, asking mutual friends what's up. Imagine someone acting superior in public, but spiraling in private because you didn't give them closure, reassurance, or attention. They're not confused by your silence. They're exposed by it. Your silence holds power because it reveals everything. It shows who respects you and who just wants control. It shows who's patient and who's panicking. It shows who values you and who only valued your reactions. And the funniest part, the more they push for answers, the quieter you become. The quieter you become, the more desperate they get. The more desperate they get, the more unshakable you look. Silence turns you into the loudest presence in the entire room. You become this immovable force they can't decode, can't manipulate, can't claim. Your stillness feels like judgment. Your calmness feels like truth. Your quiet becomes the echo they can't silence in their own mind. Imagine this. You sit in your peace, unbothered, not explaining anything, and meanwhile, someone out there is having a full emotional meltdown over conversations that never even happened. You didn't do anything. They did everything. Your silence just revealed it. And that's why they keep probing. Not because you owe them answers, but because they owe themselves honesty. And your silence makes that impossible to avoid. You don't raise your voice. You don't rush to justify. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't panic. You sit in your stillness like a throne. And in that stillness, you become the one thing they never expected. A presence they can't escape. A truth they can't ignore. A mystery they can't solve. A silence that echoes louder than their noise. You don't need words to shake a room. Your silence already did. Number 8. The question that keeps them awake at night. Why you? Nothing torments a jealous soul more than watching someone win without begging for the spotlight. Chosen one, this is the dilemma that burns them alive from the inside out. You're not loud, you're not performing, you're not tap dancing for attention. Yet somehow everyone's eyes drift toward you. You don't even try to be important. But the room bends around your presence anyway. And for people who spent their entire lives hustling for crumbs of validation, that is a psychological nightmare. Imagine this. Someone who spent years perfecting their image sees you walk in with effortless authenticity, and people gravitate toward you anyway. Someone who rehearses every sentence, watches you speak naturally, and still command more respect. Someone who built their identity around being noticed realizes you don't even care if you're seen, and yet you get seen anyway. That contrast hits them like a slap to the ego. You don't chase attention. Attention chases you because it recognizes real. They've been conditioned to believe that influence comes from noise, from being loud, flashy, dramatic, competitive. They think importance is earned by forcing yourself into the spotlight, but you break that rule without lifting a finger. You're quiet, yet unforgettable. Reserved, yet magnetic. Subtle, yet impossible to ignore. And the truth they refuse to swallow is this: you matter because you're authentic, not because you're performing. They can't stand it, because if you can have influence without trying, if you can be respected without begging, if you can be noticed without noise, then everything they built their identity on becomes invalid. Imagine this. They look at you and think, how is this person important when they aren't even trying? They obsess over that question because your existence challenges everything they told themselves about worth. It makes them wonder if they've been doing life wrong, if all their effort was just insecurity in disguise, if their loudness was never confidence, just fear. You're a walking reminder that real power doesn't advertise itself. So they study you. They overanalyze your presence. They search for the secret ingredient you're supposedly hiding. They want to find the flaw, the crack, the weakness, the embarrassing truth that proves you're just like them. Because admitting you're different means admitting they built their confidence on illusions. But here's what eats them alive. The more they study you, the more confused they get. The more they compare themselves to you, the worse they feel. The more they try to decode you, the more they realize you can't be reduced. Imagine them scrolling your profile, hoping to find something embarrassing, but finding nothing but self-control. Imagine them replaying old conversations, hoping to catch arrogance, but only finding calmness. Imagine them watching you succeed, waiting for you to crumble, only to see you rise again and again. They whisper, "Why them?" Because saying they earned it would break their ego, and saying, "They're better than me," would destroy it. You terrify them because you represent a type of influence they can't fake, a presence they can't imitate, a power they can't steal. You show them that being noticed isn't about performing, it's about being real, and they've been fake for so long that authenticity feels like a threat. They worship the spotlight. You don't need it, you radiate. Your existence forces them into a dilemma with no comfortable answer. They can't understand you, but they can't ignore you. They can't hate you fully, but they can't admire you openly. They can't copy you, but they can't let go of you either. So they stay stuck in the question that eats them alive. Why does this person matter so much? Because authenticity always wins. Because calm power always outshines loud insecurity. Because presence is stronger than performance. Because you're not trying to be the center, you just are. And until they come to terms with that truth, they will keep obsessing, watching, analyzing, digging, comparing, projecting, spiraling, all while you continue existing, unbothered, unshaken, and unmistakably chosen. That's the why you dilemma. And the answer, whether they like it or not, is simply you. Number 9. The future. They can't trace, predict, or control. Destiny terrifies small minds, especially when it's walking around in human form, breathing, evolving, and refusing to play by their rules. Chosen one, people cling to the future like it's a script they can edit. They want guarantees, predictions, maps, charts, formulas, anything that tells them life will go exactly the way they planned. Then you show up. Someone with a path that refuses to be predicted. Someone whose next move can't be graphed on their weak little timelines. Someone whose story isn't written in pencil, but carved into whatever destiny uses instead of stone. Your destiny isn't just unwritten, it's unbounded. You're the kind of presence that history feels before it understands. And trust me, they feel it. They can't explain why. They can't articulate what. But they sense something in your energy that doesn't belong to just another person. Your existence doesn't feel temporary. It feels like a spark meant for legends, not lifetimes. People don't fear the unknown. They fear the chosen one who walks straight into it without blinking. They investigate you because they want to anchor you, to reduce you, to turn your future into something predictable so they can stop feeling insecure about their own limitations. They want to believe you're normal, linear, average, manageable. But everything about you refuses to fit that structure. You move like someone rewriting paradigms in real time. You break cycles people didn't even realize they were trapped in. You walk paths that didn't exist before you took the first step. Your destiny doesn't follow the usual timeline. You're not built for moments. You're built for impact. And they feel it every time you enter a room, choose a path, walk away from nonsense, or evolve without asking for permission. Imagine this: someone tries to decode your future and gets nothing but static. Someone tries to predict your choices and realizes you don't repeat patterns. Someone tries to copy your energy and ends up looking like a glitching simulation. That's the price of trying to imitate someone whose destiny isn't written. It's lived. You weren't born to be understood. You were born to break expectations so loudly the world has no choice but to adjust. Your existence forces people to question everything they thought was fixed: their limits, their beliefs, their systems, their excuses. They watch you and realize life is bigger than their comfort zone, bolder than their fears, and more expansive than their imagination. You don't just challenge their reality, you stretch it. They'll never decode you, control you, or replicate you, not because you're hiding something, but because your blueprint isn't stored where they're looking. It's encrypted in purpose, in resilience, in instinct. In the parts of you that were forged through experiences they'll never know. You're not here to fit in. You're here to disrupt. You're not here to be predictable. You're here to be phenomenal. You're not here to follow rules. You're here to show what happens when someone stops living inside them. Let them investigate. Let them obsess. Let them think they're getting close. All they'll ever uncover are shadows of your potential. Echoes, footprints, hints. Never the source, never the core, never the real you. Because you're not a person they can capture. You're a force they will spend their entire lives trying to understand. And when history remembers you, it won't be for blending in. It'll be for how unmistakably, unapologetically, dangerously different you were. Keep walking your unwritten path. Chosen One, you weren't meant to follow destiny. You were meant to redefine it. And Chosen One, here comes the part everything was building toward. Chosen One. After ripping every mask off, exposing every hidden motive, and dragging every shadow into the light, there's only one truth left standing. You were never the one being studied. You were the one rewriting the whole game. So if this hit you the way it was meant to, hit like, subscribe, drop 77 in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to wake up. Let the world know the investigation is over. You're exactly who they were afraid you'd become.